My lab is one of the 14 labs in the Institute for Immunology at Tsinghua University. Here, the major focus of my lab is in macrophage biology, in particular the innate effector function of macrophages. So in my lab, actually, we are attempting to address three major questions in the macrophage biology field. I think the first one is the unconventional molecular mechanisms governing macrophage activation and function, such as the regulation that occurs at the steps of transcription elongation or translation. So those are really the unconventional mechanisms. And the second question we're attempting to address is to achieve better understanding of tissue-resident macrophages, especially those at the active site of host-pathogen interaction, such as lung, intestine. I think the third area of research interest in my lab is the role of monocyte macrophages in human inflammatory diseases and how to therapeutically targeting them. In my opinion, there are two major drives for such transformation. I think the first one is the realization that the myeloid cells actually do play important roles in homeostatic physiological functions. And the myeloid cells are not merely antigen-presenting cells that are born to serve T cells, and they are important in themselves. I think, for example, there are really tissue-resident myeloid cells, such as the microglia in brain and osteoclasts in bone, and the tissue-resident macrophages in spleen, lung, and the intestine that actually really play important function even under physiological conditions. I think the second major drive is the realization that myeloid cells actually are key players in human inflammatory diseases and other disorders as well. I think probably the most prominent example is the recent COVID-19 pandemic. So inflammatory monocyte macrophages in lung actually drive lung inflammation and damage, and really impose a major threat to lives of millions. And another example, of course, is the tumor-associated macrophages that play a very major role in tumor genesis. So I believe science is without boundary, and especially under the current climate of uncertainty, I think it's more important than ever for the scientific community to stay united and really to deliver the message that we emphasize the value of diversity and inclusiveness. And in such climate, I think it's really important that the Cell Press host such an exciting event of a cell symposium and in myeloid cells, and that delivers such message in a very strong way. I would like to take this opportunity to bring your awareness to an exciting upcoming event that will take place in the morning of April 28th, Beijing time, 9 a.m. And this is a Cell Press Tsinghua webinar, and the theme of the webinar is the molecular and cellular dynamics of innate and adaptive immune responses. So this event is actually organized by the Cell Press and hosted by the Tsinghua Institute for Immunology. And this really exciting event actually serves two purposes. And one is to celebrate International Day of Immunology, that is April 29th. And the second purpose is to celebrate the 110th anniversary of Tsinghua University. So it's actually a perfect timing to celebrate the excellence of immunology as well as the international collaboration. I think the founding mechanism in China is a little bit different from the founding mechanisms, for example, of NIH. So here, actually, for the National Science Foundation, we don't have very specific study sections focusing on certain sub-areas. For example, in NIH, there's the innate immunity and inflammation study section that exclusively focuses on innate immunity and myeloid cells. But here is many projects are investigator initiated. So basically the funding judgment is primarily on the merits of the investigator and also on the scientific excellency. So I think in a nutshell, we are not directly competing with other immunological disciplines for funding, and it's more like an investigator-initiated basis. COVID-19 really has a global impact on everyone, and here in Tsinghua there's no exception. And of course, I think the work in the lab has been heavily impacted, and the students actually were kept away from the lab for almost half a year. But on the positive side, right, and that made everyone really cherish the opportunity to work in the lab and to able to conduct scientific research in a very meaningful way. And I think another major impact is really the restriction of international travel. So basically, I haven't seen many of my international colleagues and friends, and for the past a year and a half to 2 years, and that really made me realize more than ever that we are a part of the international scientific community and we cannot live without each other. And I think with the vaccination program in good progress and with the international travel opening up, I really look forward to seeing many of the friends and the colleagues again in the very near future.